You're listening to the People Agenda podcast, brought to you by leading HR, workforce and payroll transformation specialist, Lace Partners. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, and welcome to the People Agenda podcast. It's me, Chris Howard from Lace Partners. Thank you as always for being here and joining us for the latest edition of our weekly podcast roundup. And today we are talking a little bit of AI. We are talking a little bit of trends for 2026, because at the time of recording, we are just pre-Christmas. So when this gets released, it'll be into 2026. And I came across a very interesting research report from friends of Lace Partners, a company called Visier, and it's called The Business Case for Humans in the AI Era, 5 Essential Trends that the C-suite must pay attention to in 2026. So what I thought I'd do is I'd get a returnee back onto the show just so that we can kick around some of the trends and have a little talk of it. And it's Andrea Derler, who is the principal researcher at Visier. Andrea, how are you doing?
Hi, Chris. Hi, Dibs. It's so good to be with you again.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And you've done a little segue into our guest, because when I was reading the trends report, there was an interesting kind of case study on one of the bits. So I want to spotlight that case study today. I'm going to get Andrea to talk through all of the trends, but it was about how Unisys, which is our second guest today, augments human capabilities with generative AI. We've got the head of people analytics from Unisys. It's Dibyendu Sharma Mondal. Dibs, how you doing? You all right?
Hey, Chris. Hey, Andrea. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to have you on. Really good to have you on. I'm keen to kick around some thoughts from you guys on what you're doing, how you're utilizing Visier's Gen AI platform as well. We will get into that. We do need to go through some of the other trends first, and we'll get some thoughts from Dibs as well. But before we do that, we have a little tradition on this podcast, and that is to ask a fundamentally different question, which is completely random and not related to anything to do with the topic or HR. And today's question relates to a story I've just read, which is that a drone in South Carolina was spotted dropping off a big package to a prison yard of meats and various goodies, probably in time for Christmas lunch. Unfortunately, it was confiscated. And so the guards in South Carolina are probably having a festive steak at the time of us recording. But I'm going to start with you, Andrea, because you've been on the show before. We'll give Dibs a little bit of time to think of his answer. But my question to you is, if you could have a drone deliver anything to your house, your garden or your place of work, what would it be and why?
Okay, so it would probably be something really unique for me that I just can't get around the corner at the grocery store. I'm from Austria originally, as you may know, and we have a pumpkin seed oil in Styria that's wonderful over salads and fried eggs. So I think if I had something or anything delivered by drone, out of the blue, literally, it would be a can of pumpkin seed oil.
I love that. That's a very good one because it's a difficult one to get. I'd imagine the drone will have to be traveling quite some distance. My choice would be a car. I'm about to get a new car delivered. My wife and I have bought a new car, and tomorrow she goes to collect it. And I thought, wouldn't it just be nice if the car could be delivered to us? You'd probably need either a very large drone or thousands of drones to carry something that's effectively going to be a ton. But that would certainly avoid having to drop our car off and go and collect it tomorrow, which we will do. But Dibs, what are you going for?
That's a great question, Chris. Groceries for sure, if it has to be unique, and I am a record collector myself. Pick up the best records across the country and drop it at my home. Some vinyl records back home through drones.
Love it. I really love that. Let's get into the trends itself. Andrea, what I wanted to do is, if we can kick off, so a little bit of framing, I guess, for today's podcast. And that was when I was reading the trends report and I got in contact with your good self. One of the things that really resonated me, which again will be the formation of our podcast discussion today, was some of the themes which came out from a white paper that we've produced as well. So in September, we produced a white paper called From Implementer to Influencer, Redefining HR's Role in Business Transformation. And what I thought was really interesting was how what we say in that white paper is HR needs to be more taking a lead, or it certainly needs to be driving business-wide transformation rather than HR-focused transformation. And why does it not do that? Sometimes we've got lots of data in there, which I won't go through now because we want to focus on your trends report. But the premise really is HR being the forefront, HR being a leader of business transformation, of change that's happening within an organization. And it really felt to me like the guys at Unisys were doing that, helping leveraging your platform as well. I want to get into that. But before we do that, we should probably talk about the actual report itself. Can you give me a little bit of an overview of some of the trends? So there's 5 trends, I think it is. So just maybe do a couple of minutes on that, and then we'll dig into the Unisys case study and chat with Dibs.
Yeah, the trends, I just wanted to explain first to our audience, where do they come from? They didn't just spring off of my own little mind here. That would be very boring. But the trends are really an accumulation of us at Visier spending hundreds, maybe thousands of hours with our customers, talking to them about what works in analytics, AI data, but also in our own data. We have 25 million employee records. We track them, trends in them 3-4 times a year. We do surveys, we read external research. So it's an accumulation of a lot of different pieces of data and information. And I call them informed signals, perhaps, through the noise that we are reading and sometimes being confused about out there. So when I say trends, this is what we're currently seeing and also predicting to be really important for next year. And I think I will tie this even to recommendations for very senior HR executives and perhaps business executives. So to cover them at a super high level, the number one trend that we are seeing is that managers really matter in the AI era. Why? Because they are the connective tissue between the business strategy and employees. They're really close to employees. They're really close to the work that's being done, to processes. And they really add value by engaging people in this pretty disruptive time. So managers matter, number one. Number two, really important. AI is going to continue to be the second in command, whilst we as humans are going to remain first in command. That's really important. We hear a lot about job replacement, task replacement. AI can do our jobs. It cannot yet. And it's really important for us to understand how we can utilize the capabilities of AI, generative AI in this case. But what's really missing still, and that's where humans come in, is that setting the context, contextualization, prompting, evaluation of output. That's still really human-based. So number two, AI is second in command. Humans remain first. And that has a lot of implications on what Dibs is going to share with us, and also what you mentioned about HR, the role of HR in this new era. Trend number three, recommendation. Please don't neglect workforce planning. Workforce planning has been a bit of a niche practice within HR or business. It's really coming to the forefront now as one of the most critical capabilities a company can have. Why? Business models are changing, business strategies are changing, go-to-market, services, product delivery, all of it is changing through AI. So what a company needs to do now is reconsider, do we have the right workforce in place? How does it change hiring or internal movement, structurings, understanding compensation? So there's so many aspects of planning the workforce of the future. Number three, workforce planning. Number four, really exciting. I think Dibs will talk about that too. How does generative AI really create culture transformation? It brings data and analytics to the business. Traditionally, the business or even other HR functions haven't always been super interested in people data. Now they are. Why? Because generative AI applications such as Visier V makes it so much easier and accessible and faster to get to the data in our own systems. So that has caused tremendous interest in people data by business leaders. So trend number four, Gen AI brings analytics to the business. And the fifth one is a bit techie, and I'm curious what you make of this, Dibs. You have seen our trends, you've participated in interviews. We think that organizations are overall rethinking their HR tech stack. What I mean by that is they are a little bit less just focused on saving money, but more on where can it add value? Where can it really make an impact on the business? So they're thinking more strategically about the HR tech stack or the tech stack in general, and reconsider now ROI or value provided by certain technologies versus just we have to cut costs. So there's a big shift in what we see, the fifth trend, rethinking the HR tech stack. So these are high-level summaries of what we see are really going to be important trends for next year, where CHROs, CFOs, CEOs, CIOs would need to pay attention to.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Dibs, I want to bring your good self in now to reflect, I guess, a little bit on some of this. Before we do that, it might be a good idea just to explain to those listening in a little bit about yourself and maybe Unisys. And then if you can talk about, let's start with that trend, which obviously you guys are featured in that spotlight, but we can talk about some of the other trends as well, about this idea around what you're doing with augmented human capabilities like AI as that first mate. But let's kick off with a little bit about yourself, Unisys, and then how you're working with the guys at Visier.
Hi, everyone. This is Dibyendu. I'm working with Unisys, and it's been a great journey working with Visier as well as our partner. Unisys is a global technology solutions company. It's an IT services and solutions provider. We work in solutions like cloud, infrastructure, cybersecurity, AI, and enterprise computing. We help larger organizations transform their operations, their business in a secure and more high-performance way. That's what we do as a business. We are headquartered in Pennsylvania in the US. And that's pretty much about me and the company. And anything around what Andrea was saying around the second point, which was really carried away, and which is the second in command point that Andrea made. And while doing these augmentations around this, when we started off Visier V we started off as a pilot batch of actually this program. Okay, we are the early adopters for the whole V concept, which is using generative AI in the people analytics space. And I would say, what Andrea said deeply resonates with us. We are taking or looking AI to make decisions. Is not about people. Just don't take decision through AI. We are just trying to augment this, amplify this. So it's not about replacing a human. It's about augmenting that piece. So the second in command line really works out well for us. And that's what you're trying to do.
Can I get your view then? And then, Andrea, I'd like to get your view as well, but we'll start with Dibs around the impact or how work has changed the perception or how it was taken on board internally when you've looked at, okay, we're going to try and implement V into our workforce. We're going to use it to drive efficiencies. What was the initial kind of impact, the response internally when you first proposed this? This is the direction that we want to go as an early adopter.
Yeah, so if you see historically, HR has been never seen as a change agent, right? So the change agent has been either a business or a finance or something on a strategy side. But with this, it actually changed a lot of things for us because now we are in a driver's seat. We're driving a change where we're trying to bring in change through adoption. We are the early adopters for the whole GenAI aspects in the operational stack within the company. We had operations, you have finance and all, but we are the early adopters. So HR was actually pushing the limit out and seeing how we can leverage AI in the overall race of where people are going here. So what it changed for us is after a certain time, we are able to showcase the value add that this can bring in. So Andrea raised a point about data for the business, right? So that's where your focus was. So we want to go beyond HR. We never want to stick with the AI concept or GenAI or people analytics concept within the HR space, but expand where we are today to the business. So that is what worked for us. So people saw a value when, say, for example, we extended our whole AI space, not only to HR, but also to business. In finance, in the core business, who are the P&L owners, and they were excited about asking questions about the business through this system. So they're getting business questions answered through a people system, which is totally different, right? So that changed the perception. So now what happens, suddenly HR is part of the discussion of taking not only people, but also your cost element, the revenue element, and other elements on it. So it's more about win-win situation for both.
Andrea, I'd love to get your views on this, around this idea that HR almost being, and it harks back to the conversation that we've had in our white paper about HR leading transformation rather than, or certainly being one of the key drivers of transformation. And as Dib said, they're at Unisys, they're early adopters. Perhaps this is not reflective of all businesses, but can you just reflect from your perspective, other businesses that you guys speak to? And do you believe that work, the sort of perception of HR function as that driver of change, of technological change, do you think there's a shift happening at the moment with HR teams?
Yes, 100%. Dibs and I met a year ago over an interview series I've conducted with a variety of customers of Visier and V early adopters at the time. And we realized that the technology in the past that didn't enable that collaboration between HR and the business was actually in the way of that collaboration, right? It used to be pretty time consuming to get an insight. Before, it used to be that the business leaders were very business, didn't have a lot of data acumen. I am overgeneralizing here, but generally business leaders are very focused on business data and less so on people data. And I think the technology is now, particularly generative AI and V, have changed that perception, like you both have just said, but also it prompted business leaders and HR function leads. I want to extend that beyond the analytics team, that they're becoming more curious now about the data. That means they are now coming to HR more and say, I know you've got this tool and I'd like to have access to this because it is so much easier for me if I sit in a business meeting and need a data point right here and now, that I don't have to wait for a few days or weeks to get to that insight, but actually log into V myself and live access our data and get to this result. That's a tremendous change on a daily basis. So I think it is a technology-driven change that is opening up opportunities now for HR to become a much more serious business partner to the business now in this direction, but also it prompts business leaders to now reach out to HR and analytics more often, because the tool enables this easy access. It's so easy now. The interpretation comes with the chart. It explains immediately what this means, and you can then put it in context of your business question.
Yeah, I really love that. I'm going to stick with you, Andrea, but then I'd like to get Dibs' view on this as well, because just as you were talking, I was thinking about, I've spent the best part of at least the last couple of years talking about HR needing to be, as a function, needing to be better storytellers, and leveraging data and utilizing data effectively helps you to tell your story. Do you think through products like you've got with V, but then also just in general, when you've been speaking to HR professionals and people like Dibs, do you think that there is this evolution that's happened? Are you starting to see that HR is getting better at telling stories and leveraging data with easier access to it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think tools like Visier and similar are helping and changing that perception. So what you're seeing is a cultural shift, okay? So I think what has changed drastically is that business leadership is seeing that HR as an understanding from both people and technology standpoint, and that intersection, what real transformation is happening. Okay, so they know that these are the teams, right? Especially like teams like ours who are in between this conjunction, who understand the business side of it as well as the technology side of it and the HR side of it, are coming together and really trying to solve this problem. So to answer your question, yes, things are changing because now technology is allowing us to achieve those things which was not possible. To give you a classic example around here is, if I have to really see what Andrea touched upon, if a business now don't have to go and look into multiple data or drive analytics themselves, the system is capable of already doing that. Now, it has done in form of dashboard or insights or anything. Now, that has gone beyond a second step where the system is actually going and doing the work for you and giving you the answer for it. So the answer could be prescriptive, could be action-driven, could be anything. But what has changed is more about talking to somebody who's strategically inclined in terms of thought process. You're getting that from a system, which changes things for you because now you have to not rely and go for the whole cycle of getting data, combining things and everything. So that perception has drastically changed.
Yeah, Andrea, I'd love to get your view, this view of HR being better storytellers. Are you seeing that?
I would say there's a maturity curve. I would say that Visier customers are usually the most mature. I have to say that in organizations in terms of how they approach the storytelling aspect, how they understand the importance of business data as adding to people data, because they have the capability technologically to do that. And they usually are set up culturally and within their teams really well. They have this natural curiosity, that natural sense of innovation. Dibs' organization, Unisys, is an example of that. A very mature people analytics team supported by an excellent technology. That's a perfect combination, right? We'll see a lot of other companies still probably on the journey, if I may say it this way, who are realizing now actually, we do really need to get a handle on our data. I think for the less mature companies in terms of analytics capabilities, they're starting off to realize now I cannot do without it anymore. I have a lot of dark data lying around in my spreadsheets and in my various HRIS systems and can't really access it and draw value from that. So I think the majority out there, if I may overgeneralize, is probably moving towards a more data-centered approach. But there are always your top performers. There are always your 20% of companies who are really good at this. And the other 80 are to varying degrees approaching more of a mature system in terms of drawing data, getting HR more ready for the business, utilizing technologies and the way it should be utilized, learning about data acumen, learning about storytelling. It's all a learning journey, right? We're all still learning to varying degrees because we have different starting points.
Yeah, I really like the way that you phrased that. And you were talking earlier about Trend 5 and the tech stack being under pressure. So I'd love to get, Dibs, some thoughts from your perspective on this as well, because I think that's quite an interesting kind of angle, that the focus is more on shift focus from cost cutting to business outcomes. We've touched on that a little bit at the moment, like leveraging data to be able to tell your story and the business actually therefore be feeling more happy to be proactively coming to you to say, look, we need your help with stuff. But Dibs, can I get you just to reflect on that Trend 5, which is, and reflect from a Unisys perspective about whether or not you're seeing that within your business? And just as a reminder, that trend is the HR solution stack will be under pressure. Provocative, I like it.
That's a very good question. I think it's every technology stack is always under pressure because of innovations, right? So I think those technology will survive or see the way forward who has been constantly innovating. And what I'm seeing is across different companies and people I speak to, and even within ours, is more about consolidations. Okay, so if you're trying to see, people want to see a connected dots all the time. Like they want to see a 360-degree view, and systems or technology which can provide you that's going to sustain. So every company is trying to reduce those footprint around. Gone are the days where you'll have 10 different systems for doing 10 different processes, right? So all the processes come together in one system. If I have to talk from a HRS standpoint, it could be one system. It could be anything. But if you see all the technology stack, the bigger guys are pretty much consolidating everything and trying to put everything in one system. There could be specialized application, but again, you will see in one way or form, there's an application which integrates this back again to the core system. So we'll see a consolidation. So yeah, the pressure is all there, but again, we are seeing many good companies coming around with different technologies that's really promising. And as the future of work goes, right, as the future of work goes and how your skill set is changing, how your requirement is changing, how your workforce dynamics is changing, I think these are something that you cannot control because these are good evolving factors. And I think, yes, that's pretty much it, I would say.
Yeah, Andrea, I'd love to get your views on that. Maybe just building on what Dibs was talking about there. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes, but I do want to get you reflecting on Trend 5. What we will do, if you're listening into this, we'll put the link in the show notes to the actual report itself. So if you want to download it and read some of the other details, then you can. And then I'd love to also talk about future plans that you guys have, both for Visier V, but then also for Unisys. But let's just reflect on that 5th trend, Andrea, and that HR solution stack being under pressure.
I think Dib said it really well. It's all about connecting the dots for internal stakeholders, right? So if you talk about any technology in the analytics space, what do we really want to do strategically? We want to give as many key stakeholders in the business access to data that they can use on a daily basis to make the right decisions. And what that means is I cannot just have a siloed system because it doesn't give me enough information to make a decision across the business, right? If I only have talent data, for example, sitting in one space about demographics of my employees, that's not going to help me understand how these employees actually affect business outcomes. It's also not going to help me to understand how the business can be ready for the future if I only look at my financials, right? So I have to combine those somehow. And that's where the real value lies. Because I have it all in one place and I can analyze it really quickly and I can give business leaders the data that they need at the moment that they need it. And there's value in that. So the cost-cutting exercise to say, I don't actually need a system to give me analysis on talent data would be very short-sighted because I'm missing a lot of the also financial implications of attrition or a lack of understanding of my skills in the workforce. Because if I don't know that, I can't make better business decisions. So it's basically a reframing of what's important to us as a business. How is it changing? What do we need to know for which time frame? Am I not just planning for the next 6 months? I need to plan for the next 24 to 36 months in this new AI era that's complex enough and changing all the time. So it's a new value proposition that I think is behind this rethinking the tech stack. Cost cutting used to be in, the cheaper the better, because they all can do the same thing. It's not true. Clearly, there's big differentiation in technologies, in capabilities, and it's trickier to find that out. I think HR and analytics teams are constantly confronted with new technologies, changing capabilities. How can you really keep track of what really matters versus what's just hot air?
It's a really good point. And actually, that resonates with me, not just from a HR perspective, but also just generally from a technology. I'm constantly looking at our marketing tech stack, for example, and thinking what's changing, and are we looking at embedding X tool for our video production, for example, or how's that going to change? How is that business going to evolve? Am I going to buy a tool, a piece of kit that in 6 months' time, the next thing down the line is overtaking it? So it's a constant sort of pressure that you have to think about. And with that kind of future sort of thinking in mind, I'm going to come to my last question for today's podcast, Dibs, which is more around kind of things that you've got on your radar. What are the big stuff that you guys are thinking about from a people analytics side at Unisys in 2026 and 2027 and beyond?
That's a great question, Chris. And I'll extend to the point you said. We are constantly also looking for things that we want to integrate to our solutions, right? And we're working with Visier on many of these. So one of the elements that we're doing is really creating that 360-degree view for our leaders, be it business, finance, HR, anyone, okay? So we have our people set of information. Now we are getting all the business data back in this system so that we can connect business outcome with people outcome put together. So we are leveraging Visier Extend, which is another solution that we are currently using to integrate those things. So we are trying to get Salesforce informations. We are getting project informations where we do the delivery to see how your people are efficiently deployed across projects, where they're working, how much they are efficient now, utilizations, all the good stuff, which is pretty much business driven. At the same time, trying to see how we're attending sales attainment through Salesforce integrations. So we are doing a lot of other additional business driven and non-business driven integrations, from learning and development to skills to everything, to really create that 360-degree view in one single system where somebody can go in and maybe with use of AI or anything else can they get that question. If I have to answer, another point to that is we also might be looking into something integrating our in-house and other extended LLMs through one of the applications that Visier has just launched, which is the MCP, which is the Model Context Protocol, that allows us to go into other system and try and get the answer for people. So it's a huge roadmap, but we are positive that we're going to make it happen.
Dibs, perhaps you can just explain a little bit more to somebody like myself who isn't aware of what Visier Extend actually is. Explain a little bit more into what it is and what it does before we wrap up today.
Visier Extend allows you to integrate any data to your people data, or you can even overlay data which is not directly linked to your people data. Think about this. So you have your project data, your delivery data, you want to link it back to a person, which you already have in Visier's applications. So you can use Extend, pretty much load the data. And Visier has an inbuilt Visier Studio, which allows you to really do massaging around the data, normalize the data, and connect it back to the people. Very interesting, because you can now connect with different connectors like Salesforce, ServiceNow, Jira, if you are a product development company, and again, any other data points. So the data connectivity is not an issue anymore. It's your business case. So if you build a very good business case around how you want to really leverage your people data with that of business, I think Extend does a fantastic job around it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. A good way for us to wrap up for today, because I think that's always been one of the biggest challenges, is how do we get different systems talking to each other, and the time that it takes to be able to compile that to then, as I talked about earlier, to be able to tell your story. And if you've got the right business case, or as we call it, a later value case, then if you can articulate that, then certainly you're going in the right direction. Andrea, thank you very much for your time today. It's been amazing having you on.
Thank you. It was great to be here. Thanks, Dibs. Thanks, Chris, as always.
Yes. And Dibs, thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely a pleasure talking to you both.
Yes. If you like this podcast, hopefully you've enjoyed it as much as I have enjoyed recording it. Please feel free to give us a comment, all of the good stuff. If you would like to find out more or get in contact with Andrea, you can do so via LinkedIn or Dibs as well. What we'll do is we'll put their LinkedIn details in the show notes as well. But from myself, from Dibs, from Andrea, thank you very much for listening. And we'll catch you next time on The People Agenda. Bye-bye.